I built my business from nothing, just grit, debt, and sleepless nights. So imagine sitting at your own birthday dinner, surrounded by family, only to hear your daughter raise a glass and announce she's officially taken over the company. Said it was time for me to enjoy my twilight years. Everyone clapped. They thought it was sweet, a passing of the torch. But what they didn't know, I'd already emptied the accounts and signed the entire business over to our biggest competitor because she wasn't ready, and I wasn't about to watch her destroy everything I spent my life building. What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you're watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. They always said you should build something that outlives you. I believe that. Hell, I built my life around it. Brick by brick, hour by hour, I sacrificed birthdays, anniversaries, even my marriage to get this company off the ground. I didn't inherit anything except debt and my father's bad knees. So I learned everything the hard way. Got burned by suppliers, lied to by clients, sued by people I once trusted. Still, I kept at it. Because the business was mine, something I could leave behind with pride. But somewhere along the line, pride turned into dread. Specifically, dread with a designer purse and a phone permanently glued to her palm. Marissa, my only daughter, my so-called heir, treated the business like her Instagram prop. She walked into meetings like they were photo ops, asked our accountant to round up the revenue so it looked better on a pitch deck, and once told a 20-year employee to learn to pivot or retire. That guy had built the damn logistics side from scratch. She just liked the sound of her own voice. And me? I let her. I told myself it was a phase, that she'd grow out of the selfies and self-importance. But entitlement doesn't shrink with time, it swells. And when someone's been told their whole life that something will be handed to them, they stop learning how to earn it. It all came to a head on a Tuesday. Not a dramatic day. No lightning, no bad news, no showdown. Just a regular, blue sky Tuesday. I walked into the warehouse and found Marissa standing in the middle of the floor, flanked by two interns with clipboards. She was filming a live stream, giving a behind-the-scenes tour for her followers. Not one mention of our team. Not one thank you to the workers who were breaking their backs fulfilling orders. Just her, beaming at the camera like she was on stage. "Dad," she called out when she spotted me. "Come say hi to my audience." I kept walking. Later that afternoon, Tanya, my longest-standing employee and one of the few people who still told me the truth, came into my office and shut the door. She just authorized a $10,000 payment to some branding firm, she said, arms crossed. "Did you know about that?" I didn't. She says it's to modernize our vibe. Whatever the hell that means. I thanked Tanya and told her I'd handle it. She didn't look reassured. Neither was I. I found Marissa in the conference room, sprawled out with her laptop and a half-empty smoothie. She didn't look up when I walked in. "You spent 10 grand today," I said. "Yeah, chill. It's marketing. We need to stay competitive." "With who?" "TikTok influencers." She rolled her eyes. "You don't get it, Dad. The game has changed. It's all about image now." "No, it's still about trust, product, and delivery. That hasn't changed." She leaned back in her chair like she was indulging me. "You built this place like a fortress. I'm trying to make it a brand." I stared at her for a long moment. My daughter, my flesh and blood, so full of charm and ambition, but completely blind to the foundations under her feet. She wanted the spotlight without the scaffolding. That night, I sat in my home office long after midnight. I poured a whiskey and stared at the ledger books, not the digital ones, the real ones, the ones I used to keep in hard copy back when I couldn't afford software. Pages and pages of messy handwriting, showing every time I'd scraped together enough to cover payroll, every loan payment I hustled to make, every late night I slept on the office couch because home was just a fight waiting to happen. I flipped to the front of one ledger and saw the first entry I ever wrote, $7.50, rental truck for first shipment. God, I remember that day. I thought I'd made it. That was 28 years ago. I put the ledger down and opened a clean sheet of paper. I wrote 2 words. Sell everything. The words scared me, but they also calmed me. Because for the first time in a long time, I saw a way out. Not out of my legacy, but out of watching it rot from the inside. Marissa didn't want to run the business. She wanted to parade it. And if I gave it to her, she would bleed it dry in 6 months, then cry about how unfair it all was. I could already picture the Instagram post. Sometimes people don't see your vision. But I'm still standing. No, not on my watch. The next morning, I made 3 calls. One to my attorney, one to my financial advisor, and one to an old acquaintance, Carl Kingston, the CEO of our biggest competitor. Carl and I had history. Not friendly history, but mutual respect. We'd competed for contracts, stolen each other's clients, and occasionally shared drinks at trade shows. If anyone could preserve what I built, it was him. He was ruthless, but not careless. That mattered. When Carl picked up, I didn't waste time. I'm thinking of stepping down, I said. Might be interested in a sale. There was a pause, then a slow whistle. Never thought I'd hear that from you. Neither did I. Is this about your daughter? I didn't answer. Look, he said. If you're serious, let's talk. But you know I'm not going to let sentiment cloud this. You're sitting on a gold mine. But if your numbers are inflated by Instagram glitz, I'll smell it a mile away. That's fair, I said. Set up a meeting. I hung up and stared at my phone. My hand was shaking. I wasn't doing this out of spite. I needed to believe that. I was doing it because sometimes the best way to protect your family is from themselves. Marissa thought she was ready, but she didn't know the first thing about sacrifice, about payroll panic, about begging banks for extensions while pretending everything was fine. She hadn't earned the keys. Not yet. Maybe not ever. And as much as that broke something in me, it also gave me clarity. I would sell. Quietly. Carefully. And then, when the time was right, I'd hand her the truth. Not a company, but a clean goodbye. But first, I had to play along. Because the last thing a snake expects is to get bit by its own blood. I used to think silence was a sign of surrender. That if you didn't speak up, didn't fight back, you were giving in. But as the weeks passed after that first call to Carl Kingston, I learned something new. Silence could also be a weapon. The quiet, calculated kind. The kind that waits until the room is loud with clapping before it sets the match. Marissa, meanwhile, had found her rhythm. At least, that's what she called it. She started showing up at the office later and later, claiming her mornings were for strategy sessions with her personal brand consultant. She wore blazers now, big, boxy ones with shoulder pads and gold buttons, like she was about to take the stage at a tech summit she had no business speaking at. One afternoon, I found her filming in the break room with a ring light. "You're blocking the good lighting," she said, waving me out of frame. "You're in a kitchen," I replied. "Yeah, but it's not just a kitchen. It's our culture. People want to see the heart of the operation." No one from the team had been asked to be in the video. She didn't even offer them coffee. I started spending more time with Tanya. Not officially, just casual check-ins. She'd been with me since year 3. Back when we were packing orders on my dining table and using the garage as a storage unit. Tanya knew every product code by heart. She also knew bullshit when she saw it. She's making changes without consulting anyone, Tanya told me over lunch in the warehouse. New logos. A slogan. She hired some web team to overhaul the site. Said the old one looked too industrial. "It is industrial," I said. Tanya sipped her coffee, smirking. "Not anymore. Apparently, we're a lifestyle brand for ambitious disruptors." Whatever the hell that means. I leaned back, letting her words sink in. Marissa was changing things, not because they needed changing, but because she wanted to mark territory. Paint over what came before. Like a kid scribbling her name on a wall she didn't build. And the worst part? Everyone was watching me, waiting to see what I'd do. Would I let her run wild because she was my daughter? Would I cut her off and become the cold-hearted patriarch? They didn't understand. It wasn't about control anymore. It was about preservation. So I nodded politely when Marissa held staff inspiration meetings. I smiled through her jargon about leveraging emotional content. I even clapped when she unveiled the new pastel color palette in front of the entire office. But behind the scenes, I was moving chess pieces. Carl and I had 2 more meetings, quiet ones, at his office across town. I brought the books, the real numbers, stripped of any Instagram glitter. Carl didn't sugarcoat anything. "She's going to burn this place down," he said, flipping through the quarterly reports. "But I'll give you this. You've built something solid. And if you're ready to sell, I'll preserve it. Keep your core team. Honor your contracts. That mattered to me. I didn't just want out. I wanted it to survive. Even if my name disappeared from the door. Draft the terms, I told him. I'll have my attorney review. It should have felt like betrayal. But it didn't. Not when I imagined Marissa slashing benefits to fund a brand video. Not when I overheard her telling a new hire that we needed to pivot away from the blue-collar vibe. That one almost made me laugh. Blue-collar was the vibe. Blue-collar paid the bills. But to her, it was just aesthetic. Something to edit, like a photo filter. Then came the kicker. Marissa set up a launch party. Not for a new product. Not for a milestone. Just to reintroduce the brand to a new audience. She booked a rooftop in the Arts District, hired a DJ, ordered custom cocktails with names like The Disruptor and Founder's Fizz. I want you to come, she told me one evening at dinner. It'll mean a lot. We're going to toast to your legacy. That word again. Legacy. As if she was already carving my name into a tombstone and calling it gratitude. I nodded. I'll be there. I didn't tell her that. By then, the sale would be nearly finalized. That I'd already emptied the operational accounts into a trust. That all the important assets were being transferred to the new entity. I didn't know her that warning. She was celebrating an empire she didn't build. I was dismantling it brick by brick, quietly, methodically, lovingly. A few days before the launch party, Tanya came to my office again. You should see this, she said, holding her phone. She showed me Marissa's latest Instagram post. A long caption with a glamorous headshot of her in front of our warehouse doors. The caption read, "They say legacy is inherited, but I say it's earned. I'm proud to be stepping into a leadership role at my father's company and ushering in a bold new era. This one's for the dreamers." I felt something twist in my chest. Not rage, not even sadness, just emptiness. Like I was watching someone perform a play about my life, using my props, my stage, my audience, but never once bothering to learn the script. That night, I sat at my desk and signed the final agreement. The company would be sold by the end of the quarter. Employees would be retained under new management. Marissa would inherit my estate eventually, but not my business. I looked at the framed photo on my shelf. Me, Marissa, and her mother, back when Marissa was 5. We were all covered in paint from decorating the old office. She used to say she wanted to be the boss one day, and maybe she still could be, but not like this. Not by cutting the ribbon while the floor was rotting beneath her heels. By the time Marissa sent the formal invite to the launch party, the paperwork was already inked. The deal was clean, airtight. My name was off the books, the accounts were stripped to essentials, and Carl's people were prepping a public acquisition notice that would go live in exactly 3 weeks. Everything I'd built, its name, its structure, its workforce, was now secured under a company that actually understood what it meant to run a business, not just flaunt one. Marissa, meanwhile, thought she was stepping into her reign. She printed gold foil invitations. Gold foil. Sent them to friends, influencers, a few clueless business press outlets she'd charmed into believing she was the next big name in founder culture. The kind of people who believed buzzwords were the same as backbone. I got mine hand-delivered to the office. "Open it while I'm here," she said, grinning. I peeled back the envelope and read the scripted print. "The future is female, celebrating a new chapter in legacy leadership." There was even a hashtag at the bottom. "Catchy," I said flatly. She beamed. "Thanks. I've been working with this PR girl. She's amazing. I think this is going to go viral." Like, seriously. I looked up at her. "You do know that going viral doesn't mean people actually buy anything, right?" She rolled her eyes and plopped down on the guest chair across from my desk. "You are so stuck in that old school mindset. It's not about selling a product anymore. It's about selling a story. People invest in who you are." "No," I said calmly. "People invest in what works. The rest is fluff." She shrugged. "Well, fluff gets funding. You'll see." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. She left shortly after, probably off to order another case of personalized cocktail napkins. And I sat there, staring at the invitation. For a moment, I wondered what she'd feel when the acquisition announcement went out. Would she scream? Cry? Try to spin it into some girl boss rebranding story? Probably all of the above. But deep down, I hoped she'd understand. That maybe, just maybe, The loss would teach her what the gain never did. The night before the party, I drove out to the warehouse one last time. Not for any reason, really. Just to walk the floor. To remember it the way it was before hashtags and mood boards. The lights hummed low overhead. The shelves were fully stocked. The scent of cardboard, tape, and machine oil wrapped around me like an old friend. I passed the row where we used to hand pack every shipment. There were still faint scuff marks on the floor from that old dolly we never replaced. I stood there for a while, just listening to the quiet. This place had saved me. It had saved my marriage, briefly, when things got tight. It gave Marissa every vacation, every private school, every ballet class she eventually quit halfway through. It gave us a life. A real one. And now it was gone. Sold, stripped, signed. But saved. The next day was a blur of lights, drinks, and small talk. The rooftop was packed, glittering and curated. Every guest had a cocktail in hand. There were light projections on the wall, slideshows of old company milestones, photos of Marissa with me at various stages, rebranded into a narrative of her rising influence. I stood off to the side, letting her work the room. She was good at it, I'll give her that. Smiling just the right amount. Laughing on cue. Guiding people through the steps of her success story, conveniently omitting that I was the architect, the builder, and the foundation. Around 8:15 p.m., the DJ cut the music. A spotlight hit the stage. Marissa stepped up, holding a champagne flute. The crowd clapped before she even spoke. She glanced over at me, winked, then raised her glass. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began. "This is more than just a rebrand. It's a rebirth." Applause. I'm honored to take the lead of our family business and carry forward what my father built, but into a new, modern age. One where innovation and inclusivity define everything we do. More clapping. And to my father, Dad, I know you're here. Thank you. For everything. You've worked so hard for so long. It's time to enjoy your twilight years. That last line. That smug, polished little jab, wrapped in a compliment. It hit like a cold blade. Not because it was cruel, but because it was so confidently wrong. The crowd turned to me. I smiled. Raised my glass. Didn't say a word. Because I didn't need to. She thought she'd inherited an empire. What she didn't know was that the crown on her head was paper. Pretty, lightweight, and completely useless. And when it rained, it would fall apart in her hands. The thing about fireworks, real or metaphorical, is that they're loud, pretty, and over far too fast. The rooftop party kept going well past 10. Marissa was floating through the night, cheeks flushed with attention, selfies being snapped with people who couldn't tell a warehouse from a wine cellar. I stayed for exactly an hour after her speech. Just enough to be polite. Just long enough to let her think she'd won. Then I left without saying goodbye. I drove home in silence. The hum of the freeway and the soft clink of the champagne glass in the passenger seat. The one she handed me before the toast, keeping me company. I didn't drink it. I just kept it. As a souvenir. Like a museum relic from a world that never really existed. By morning, the emails had started. First from HR. Then the operations lead. Then Tanya. "Hey boss. You might want to check the staff Slack. Everyone's talking about an announcement from KGC Holdings, something about an acquisition." I didn't respond. Then the text started. "Marissa, what the hell is going on?" "Marissa, Dad. Seriously. What did you do?" "Marissa, you need to call me right now." I didn't. I waited. By noon, my phone rang. She didn't bother with hello. "You sold the company?" I stayed quiet. "You sold my company." "Your company?" I repeated, flat. She sucked in a breath like she'd been slapped. "You know what I mean." "No," I said. "I don't think I do." There was a long silence, thick and ugly. "I gave a speech last night," she said, her voice shaking. "I stood in front of hundreds of people and told them I was taking over. That we were entering a new era. That this was my future." "I know," I said. "I was there." "You humiliated me." "No," I said. "You did that yourself." Her breath hitched. "You could have warned me. And you could have earned it," I said. "But you didn't. You're punishing me because I didn't do things your way." "No," I replied, more calmly than I expected. "I'm protecting what I built." From someone who thinks branding is more important than people. From someone who spends more on PR than she does on product development. From someone who doesn't know the names of the men and women who've kept this place running for 2 decades. I was trying to bring it into the future. You were trying to skip the work. Silence again. Then, I'm your daughter. And that's the only reason you still have my name on your trust, Marissa. But the business? That was never yours. The line went dead. I set the phone down gently and stared out the window. The sky was overcast, soft and gray, like the city itself was bracing for the fallout. An hour later, Tanya called. You should hear what happened. I leaned back in my chair. Go on. She came into the office like a hurricane. Screaming, crying, demanded everyone stop working. Said the sale wasn't legal. I had to escort her out. She all right. She'll live, Tanya said. But people saw it. They heard everything. And to be honest, they're relieved. We all are. You did the right thing. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt hollow, but also steady. That evening, I took a walk through my neighborhood. Just a quiet loop. No phone. No music. Just me and the crunch of leaves under my shoes. I passed a park bench and sat down, watching the kids play, the dogs run. Life, moving forward. I pulled the watch she gave me, my birthday gift, from my wrist and studied it. Gold, oversized, flashy. Something meant for show, not for substance. Just like the speech. Just like the crown she wore. Later that night, my assistant forwarded a voice message from one of our oldest suppliers. Heard the news. Honestly, good move. If she'd taken over, we'd have pulled out. Respect, man. Respect. Something earned, not inherited. The next morning, I found a small package on my doorstep. No return address. Inside was the birthday watch. No note. No explanation. Just the watch, still ticking. I closed the box slowly and placed it on the shelf beside my first ledger book. The circle, I suppose, was complete. By Monday morning, the whispers had turned into headlines. Founder hands over family company to competitor, daughter left out of deal. The end of an era, or the start of a feud. Hashtag LegacyGate trends after viral launch party turned sour. The internet didn't care about nuance. It never did. All it needed was a juicy contrast. A glitzy birthday toast turned corporate takedown. A daughter blindsided. A father called cold-blooded by people who'd never once run payroll with their own credit card. I kept the TV off. I stayed off social media. But I couldn't avoid the fallout entirely. My phone didn't stop buzzing. Some texts were from old colleagues, quiet nods of respect. Others, from family members who had barely spoken to me in years, but now had an opinion. Uncle Joe, bit harsh, don't you think? Cousin Renee, not gonna lie, I'm kinda with Marissa on this one. My sister, she was crying at Mom's house. You should call her. But I didn't. Not because I didn't feel anything. God, I felt everything. The guilt, the weight of it, pressed heavy behind my ribs. But guilt is not the same as regret. And that line matters. Carl's team handled the transition swiftly. Employees were retained, contracts honored, and operations continued seamlessly. Tanya was offered a senior role with a significant raise, one she accepted, though she stopped by my place to thank me in person. She didn't come to collect her things, she said, standing at my door with a paper bag of leftover office junk, Marissa's laptop stand, a bottle of fancy hand lotion, a framed photo of her on stage at a women's entrepreneurship panel. Do me a favor? I said, glancing at the bag. Drop it at her place. Or toss it. Whatever's easier. Tanya nodded, but didn't move. She's not the only one who's hurt, you know. I looked at her. You built this with love. You didn't just sell a company. You sold a dream. Even if it was the right move, it still hurts. I didn't answer. After she left, I sat in the living room with the bag beside me. I pulled out the framed photo. Marissa stood center stage, hands in the air, smiling wide. Behind her, a screen read, "The future of female leadership." She'd always believed she was meant for more. And maybe she still was. But belief isn't a blueprint. And ambition without discipline is just ego in heels. I received a voicemail that evening. Her voice, quiet, choked. You didn't even let me try? You decided I would fail before I even got the chance. Do you know what that does to a person? I played it twice. I wanted to call back. Tell her I had let her try. That I'd watched for months, hoping she'd step up. That I'd kept the doors open long enough for her to walk through with purpose instead of ego. But no explanation would land now. Not when she wasn't ready to hear it. That week, the public reactions deepened. Some lauded me for protecting a legacy. Others labeled me a cautionary tale, too stubborn to evolve, too proud to pass the torch. What they missed was this. I wasn't afraid to pass the torch. I was afraid of what she'd burn down with it. One afternoon, I went to grab lunch at a small diner I hadn't visited in years. As I waited for my sandwich, a young man at the next table leaned over. "You're the guy from the video, right? The launch party." I braced myself. "Yeah, that's me." He nodded. "Respect. I work in operations. Trust me, half these visionaries don't know how to run a coffee machine. You did what needed doing." He went back to his fries. That was it. No selfie. No rant. Just validation from someone who knew the trenches. That night, I did something I hadn't done in a while. I wrote Marissa a letter. Not an apology. Not a lecture. Just a window. "You asked why I didn't let you try. The truth is, I did. You were already holding the keys. You just never opened the door. You changed logos, booked parties, posted speeches. But you never sat with the numbers. Never talked to the people who built the place. You performed the role. You never led. I didn't sell the company to punish you. I sold it to save it. And in doing so, I hoped maybe it would save you too. From the illusion that legacy can be inherited without understanding. From the lie that your last name is enough. You're smart, charismatic, capable of something great. But it won't come from standing on my shoulders. It'll come from building something of your own. And when you do, I'll be the first to raise a glass." I didn't send it. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But it felt good to write it. To lay down the armor for just a moment. I folded the letter, slid it into a drawer, and walked outside. The air was cool. The sky open. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't known I was missing. Peace. I thought the silence after the storm would feel like relief. And in some ways, it did. The calls slowed down. The emails thinned out. Carl's team took over operations entirely, and Tanya, ever the steady hand, texted me weekly updates just in case I wanted to know how things were running. I didn't ask her to. She just knew I'd want to hear it, even if I pretended I didn't. Marissa, on the other hand, went quiet. Weeks passed. No texts. No calls. No cryptic social media posts. Just absence, sharp and deliberate, like a door slammed, locked, and double-bolted from the other side. At first, I checked my phone every morning, half expecting to find her name on the screen. Then, as the days stretched on, I stopped checking at all. It wasn't that I didn't care. God knows I cared. I just learned that care and control are not the same thing. And love without boundaries isn't love at all. It's fear dressed up as sacrifice. I found myself driving by the old warehouse some afternoons. Not stopping, just passing. Watching the new logo on the side, the upgraded signage. Watching the people walk in and out. Still familiar faces, still the same bones. It gave me peace. Not pride. Not sadness. Just peace. About a month after the fallout, I ran into my sister at the grocery store. She was holding a head of lettuce and a grudge. "You're really not going to talk to her?" she asked, without preamble. "She's not talking to me. You didn't give her much reason to." I shrugged. I gave her honesty. That's worth more than comfort. She thinks you don't believe in her. I don't believe in handouts. She sighed and dropped the lettuce into her cart. "You know she's your only child, right?" "Believe me, I haven't forgotten." She started to walk away, then paused. "Just don't wait too long, okay? Stubborn doesn't look good on either of you." I didn't reply. Not because she was wrong, but because she wasn't all the way right either. A few nights later, I went through some old boxes in the attic. Not looking for anything in particular. Just trying to remember the years before everything got complicated. I found drawings Marissa had made in second grade. One of me holding her hand outside a big rectangle labeled "My Dad's Office." She'd drawn us both with capes. I sat on the floor and laughed. Not bitterly, just softly. She really did want to follow in my footsteps once. Before the applause, before the audience. Back when all she wanted was to be proud and be seen. Maybe that part of her was still in there, buried under branding deals and press releases. A few days later, I received an envelope in the mail. No return address. Handwritten. Inside was a single card. On the front, it said, "For what it's worth." Inside, in Marissa's handwriting, "I hated you for what you did, but I don't anymore. I'm not ready to forgive you, and I don't think you're waiting on that anyway. but I'm starting to understand. I thought the company was proof I was good enough, that if I owned it, I'd finally feel worthy. But I get it now. It wasn't about owning. It was about building. I'm trying to figure out what I want to build, and I'll probably screw it up a few times. But at least when I do, it'll be mine. P.S. I kept the watch. I read it 3 times. Then I placed it next to the letter I'd written and never sent. Side by side. 2 imperfect truths from 2 stubborn people who loved each other enough to finally stop pretending. I didn't call her. I didn't text back. I didn't need to. Because love isn't always about running after someone. Sometimes, love is standing still with the door open, light on, seat warm, place saved, until they find their way back. Not because they need you, but because they finally see you. And if she never came back, well, I'd still be standing here. Because boundaries are love too. If you've ever had to choose between protecting your peace and preserving a relationship, this story probably hit close to home. Family doesn't always mean blind loyalty. Sometimes it means tough choices and even tougher silence. Would you have done what he did? Or was there another way? Let us know in the comments. And if you've ever had to draw a hard line with someone you love, your story might just help someone else find their own voice.